Morning broke beautifully, the sky painted in a gentle gradient of gold and pale lavender. Birds perched on the roof murmured softly, and the world seemed calm, too calm. Tamara felt it before she saw it. A weight in the air. A warning in her chest. She stood by the balcony outside the master bedroom, arms crossed over her nightgown as she watched the city wake. The wind brushed her skin, cool and unfamiliar, like a hand that did not belong. She didn't hear David walk up behind her, but she felt him place his hand lightly on her back. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked quietly. She shook her head. "Something is shifting. Today feels different." David exhaled slowly. He understood. There are days when life whispers before it roars. "We'll handle whatever comes," he promised. But even promises can shake when the ground begins to move. At breakfast, Zara was chattering happily about school projects, crayons, and how her teacher promised they would learn a dance routine soon. Her voice rose and fell sweetly like a small bird hopping along a branch. David and Tamara both listened, both smiled, both watched her with an alertness she didn't understand. She finished her juice and picked up her backpack. "Daddy, can you drop me today?" she asked. David glanced at Tamara, then nodded. "Yes. Let me grab my keys." Tamara kissed Zara's forehead gently. "I'll pick you up later." Zara kissed her back, giggling. "Okay." The innocence was heartbreaking. David and Zara left. But Tamara remained standing for a long moment, hands still on the door, her gaze drifting far away. Something was coming. And it was coming today. Across the city, a car parked on a quiet street. Amaka sat in the passenger seat of a black sedan. Her fingers tapped rhythmically against her thigh. Not nervous. Just impatient. The photos liaison sat beside her, arms crossed, jaw tight. Her eyes were locked forward, watching. Waiting. The school bus rolled down the road, rounding the street toward its stop. Children's laughter spilled faintly from the windows. Amaka's breath hitched. Not from love. Not from guilt. From purpose. The bus slowed. Zara stepped down with her small backpack bouncing behind her. There she was. Exactly where the folder said she would be. The liaison leaned forward. Now. Amaka opened the car door. But something she did not expect happened. The moment her shoe touched the pavement, a man in a charcoal suit stepped out from a tinted SUV parked nearby, calm, unbothered, and holding a phone. He wasn't surprised to see her. He was waiting for her. Keen. Amaka froze. He smiled slowly, like someone who had been expecting her exact breath, her exact move. "Good morning, Amaka," he said, voice smooth and cold. "Going somewhere with a child that does not belong to you?" Zara turned, saw Amaka, and blinked in confusion. "Auntie Amaka?" she asked curiously. Amaka swallowed. She had been seen. Stopped. Cornered. Keen stepped closer, hands in his pockets, no threat in his posture, simply absolute control. "I suggest you return to your car," he said softly. "Before I make a call that will make this street your graveyard." The photos liaison tensed. His hand slid toward his jacket, toward a weapon. But Keen didn't flinch. He didn't blink. He just tilted his head slightly. "Don't," he said. "Not here. Not today. The city is watching." The liaison hesitated. Because he realized. There were eyes. Security. Hidden. Prepared. This was not a surprise attack. This was a trap. Amaka realized it too. Her hand slowly released the car door. She stared at Keen. And he stared right back. "You were followed from the moment you left your apartment," he said. "Your moves are no longer unpredictable, Amaka. You are not a threat." Something inside her snapped. "I am everything you fear," she hissed. Keen's smile did not fade. "No. You are everything he has already outgrown. The words landed like a slap. Amaka stepped backward numbly and got back into the car. The liaison reversed quickly, the tires screeching as they disappeared down the street. Zara blinked, confused. Who were they? Keen crouched down and smiled gently. Just someone who forgot how to love properly, he said softly. Come. Let's take you inside. Zara nodded and followed him. She never knew how close the storm had come. The mansion, noon. David and Tamara stood in the living room as Keen finished recounting everything. Tamara's hand flew to her chest. David stepped forward sharply. She tried to take her? Keen nodded once. Yes. She didn't reach her. But the attempt was made. David's jaw tightened, rage simmering, boiling, rising. Tamara's fingers curled, nails biting into her palm. She is not stopping, she whispered. No, Keen said. She has crossed into a place where she feels she has nothing left to lose. That makes her dangerous. David paced, not out of fear. Out of decision. What do we do? Tamara asked. David stopped moving. His voice was quiet. Steady. Cold. We end her influence. Her networks. Her support. Her reputation. Her credibility. And then her access to anything. Keen nodded. Already working on it. Tamara looked between them. No, she said slowly. It's not enough. Both men turned to her. Her eyes were clear, focused, direct. She tried to break us emotionally, Tamara said. She wanted attention. She wanted to be seen. So we break her where she feels it most. David stepped closer. Where is that? Tamara inhaled. Her image. Her story. Her identity. Keen's eyebrows lifted. You want to destroy her publicly. Tamara didn't blink. Yes. Because the world believed she was victim once. Now the world will learn the truth. David looked at her with something deeper than admiration. Something stronger than love. Partnership. War. You are not the same woman you were months ago, he murmured. No, she said quietly. I'm not. He cupped her cheek gently. Then let's end this together. Across the city, Amaka's apartment. Amaka entered the room and slammed the door shut. Her chest rose and fell in sharp, uneven breaths. Her hands shook. Not from fear. From humiliation. She had been stopped. Confronted. Dismissed like a nuisance. Her eyes burned. Her vision blurred. Her breath broke. She grabbed the nearest vase and threw it to the floor, where it shattered across the tiles. Then she screamed. A sound so raw, so wounded, so tortured that even the walls seemed to recoil. But when her scream faded, silence grew. A slow, chilling silence. She lifted her head. Her eyes were no longer frantic. They were clear. Cold. Sharp enough to cut. If I cannot reclaim what I lost, she whispered to the empty room, then I will destroy what I created. Her breath steadied. Her rage focused. She picked up her phone. Opened contacts. Selected a number. Photos. The line clicked. Her voice was steady. I'm ready, she said. Tell me what to do. Night had settled over Lagos like a slow-moving shadow. The rain that had been threatening all afternoon finally began to fall, soft at first, tapping against the glass like fingers asking to be let in. But soon, it grew heavier, drumming across rooftops and filling the air with the scent of wet earth. Inside David's mansion, the lights glowed warm, but the atmosphere was tense. The storm outside felt like an echo of everything inside their lives, building, ready to break. Tamara sat on the living room sofa beside Zara, brushing the little girl's hair while watching a children's show playing softly on the TV. Zara leaned into her without hesitation, finding comfort in her presence. Tamara smiled, but her eyes kept drifting to the door, waiting for David and Keen to return from the meeting. Zara looked up. "Are you worried?" Tamara paused. Children saw the truth without filters. She smoothed Zara's hair gently. "No. I just want everyone to be safe." Zara nodded and returned to her drawing, a picture of all three of them holding hands. A family. The innocence of it made Tamara's chest ache. She didn't want this child to learn what storms really look like. Meanwhile, at the warehouse. The warehouse was dimly lit, the air filled with the smell of metal and machine oil. David and Keen stood across from a man whose presence carried weight, Chief Alawu. His voice was deep and calm, the kind that hinted at power that didn't need to be proven. "I hear trouble is circling your home," Chief Alawu said. David nodded. "And I hear someone is trying to use my past as a weapon." Chief Alawu leaned back, fingers tapping the desk. "Desperation makes people reckless. Amaka knows she is running out of time. If she cannot win sympathy, she will try fear." David's expression hardened. "She's already moving that way." Keen added, "We have identified 2 men financing her moves. We cut them off tomorrow." Chief Alawu smiled slowly. "Good. But remember, when an enemy realizes they are losing, their final strike is the most dangerous." David nodded once. He knew. Which was why he would not wait to be struck. Back at the mansion. The heavy knock came at the door just after 10 p.m. Zara jumped. Tamara froze. The knock came again. Loud. Slow. Echoing. Tamara stood, steadying herself. "Stay here," she whispered to Zara. She approached the door carefully and peered through the security camera screen. A single envelope sat on the doormat. No person in sight. No footsteps. Just the rain. Tamara's heart tightened. She opened the door only enough to reach down and grab the envelope, then locked it again quickly. Her fingers shook just slightly as she opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Written in neat, bold handwriting. "You think you can replace me?" Tamara swallowed hard. But there was more. A photograph. Her breath left her body. It was a picture of her and Zara earlier that day, sitting on the balcony, taken from a distance. Someone had been watching them. Inside the boundaries of their home. The house that was supposed to be safe. Her chest tightened, not from fear for herself, but fear for Zara. She closed her eyes for a moment, steadying her breathing. Then she picked up her phone. David returns. The mansion door opened just as the thunder cracked overhead. David stepped inside, rain dripping from his shoulders, and the moment he saw Tamara's face, he stopped. "What happened?" Tamara didn't answer. She simply handed him the photo and note. David went silent. His eyes did not widen. His voice did not raise. But every muscle in his jaw tightened. Keen looked over his shoulder and his expression darkened too. "She's crossed the line," Keen said quietly. David closed the envelope slowly. His voice was low, controlled, dangerous. "She thinks fear will make us retreat." Tamara stepped closer. "I'm not afraid for myself." "But Zara." David gently placed a hand on her shoulder, grounding her. "No one will touch her. No one will come close. Not while I am breathing." Tamara nodded, but emotion still burned behind her eyes. And then Zara appeared at the top of the staircase, small, silent, watching. David softened immediately. He knelt and opened his arms. Zara rushed into him, burying her face in his chest. He held her tightly, as if shielding her from the world. Over her head, his eyes met Tamara's. A silent promise passed between them. The decision. When Zara was asleep, David and Tamara stood on the balcony together. The storm raged, wind whipping through the garden. Lightning lit the sky. David spoke first, voice quiet but solid. "This ends now. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Tonight. Tamara didn't ask how. She only nodded. She had chosen this battle with him. And he had chosen her. Their hands found each other. No trembling. Only resolve. Far across the city, in a dimly lit apartment, Amaka stood at her window, watching the same storm. She smiled. Soft. Cold. This is only the beginning. The storm continued through the night, the thunder rolling as though the sky itself was tense with anticipation. Rain streaked down the windows of the mansion, blurring the outside world into moving shadows and light. David stood in his private study, sleeves rolled up, the envelope Tamara had found lying open on the desk. The photograph inside seemed to burn like a silent challenge. Keen was pacing slowly, thinking. His footsteps matched the rhythm of the rainfall. Someone got close enough to take that picture, Keen murmured. Which means there's a breach. Someone inside your circle is feeding her information. David didn't blink. I know. Tamara entered quietly, her steps soft, but her posture strong. No part of her looked afraid, only resolute. We cannot keep waiting, she said. She has already shown that she is willing to cross lines. David nodded once. We go to her. Keen stopped pacing. Tonight? David looked at the photo again. No more waiting. Tamara stepped closer. I'm going with you. David lifted his eyes to hers. It will be dangerous. Her gaze didn't waver. So is staying here and doing nothing. Keen exhaled, impressed despite everything. She's right. David looked between them both, the brother who had fought beside him, and the woman who now stood with him not out of convenience, but commitment. All right, he said. Then we do this together. Across the city, Amaka's apartment. Amaka sat at her vanity table, applying lipstick with a steady hand. Her reflection stared back, composed, confident, unshaken. The rain cast streaks of light and shadow across her face. Behind her, a man leaned against the wall, the same one from the lounge. His presence was calm, but his eyes were sharp. You're escalating too quickly, he said. Amaka capped the lipstick and turned to him. No. I am right on time. He studied her carefully, as though trying to decipher whether this was strategy or something darker. He will come to you. Amaka smiled. That's exactly what I want. The drive. David's car moved steadily through the wet streets, wipers cutting arcs across the glass. Street lights glowed gold across the rain-soaked road. Tamara sat beside him in silence, but not a heavy one, a focused one. Their hands rested close, not touching, yet connected. Keen sat in the back seat, analyzing the building they were approaching. The location was intentional. Amaka hadn't chosen a hidden place. She had chosen somewhere visible. Somewhere bold. She wants to be seen, Keen murmured. She wants control, David corrected. Tamara added softly, or she wants to feel like she hasn't already lost. Keen nodded. That, too. The car stopped. The confrontation. The hallway leading to Amaka's apartment was quiet, washed in dim yellow light. The sound of rain against the balcony windows echoed faintly from down the hall. David knocked once. A pause. Then the door opened. Amaka leaned casually against the frame, wearing a soft satin robe and a calm smile, too calm, too practiced. Well, she said lightly. You came. David did not return the smile. We need to talk. Tamara stood slightly behind him, not hiding, not confronting, simply present. Amaka's eyes flicked to her. For a moment, something sharp passed through her expression. But her smile didn't fade. So you brought her. She stepped aside. Come in. The apartment was tidy, modern, softly lit. Not chaotic. Not frantic. But every detail felt intentional, staged, even. David and Tamara sat on one side of the living room. Amaka lowered herself into a chair opposite them, the man from earlier standing silently behind her like a shadow. Keen remained near the door, watching everything. No words were spoken for a long moment. Amaka broke the silence first. "You've built such a perfect new life, David," she said softly. "A family, a home, peace." David didn't react. Amaka's voice darkened, not loud, just low. "And you expect me to disappear quietly while you pretend I never existed?" Tamara leaned forward, calm and composed. "No one asked you to disappear. But you crossed a line when you tried to bring fear into a child's life." For the first time, Amaka's expression cracked. Her eyes flicked away. David spoke, voice steady. "This isn't about the past. It's about what you chose to do now." Amaka looked at him, truly looked. And there it was. Not anger. Not hatred. Hurt. Deep, old, unhealed hurt. "You moved on," she whispered. "And I was left gathering myself from pieces you didn't even look back at." Tamara's breath caught. David closed his eyes briefly, not in guilt, but in understanding. "I was wrong back then," he said quietly. "And I cannot change the past. But bringing harm now will not heal what was broken before." Amaka's lip trembled, for just 1 second, before her expression hardened again. "So what do you want?" she asked. David's voice was clear. "To stop this before it destroys everyone involved, including you." Silence. The rain outside softened to a quiet hush. Amaka looked down. Her fingers shook. The man behind her watched her carefully, as though her next decision would shift everything. Tamara spoke gently, not as an enemy, not as a rival, but as someone who understood pain. "You don't have to fight alone. But you do have to choose what comes next." The room held stillness. Then, slowly, Amaka exhaled. A long, tired breath. Not surrender. Not defeat. But something beginning to soften. Something beginning to break open. Something beginning to heal. The rain outside quieted into a soft drizzle, tapping lightly against the balcony glass. It was as though the storm itself paused to listen. Inside Amaka's apartment, the air held a fragile stillness. Amaka sat back in her chair, her eyes lowered, fingers intertwined tightly in her lap. For the first time since the confrontation began, she didn't look angry. She looked exhausted. David watched her carefully. Tamara remained calm beside him, the strength in her presence steady but compassionate. Keen stood near the door, silent, observing, calculating. And behind Amaka, the man in the tailored suit, Yugo, kept his hands loosely clasped, though his eyes were sharp, watchful. Not protective. Strategic. Amaka spoke first, her voice quiet. "You think I want to be your enemy?" David didn't answer. He was waiting for the truth, not the first words that came out of pain. Amaka lifted her eyes. "I don't." That surprised no one more than herself. Her voice trembled slightly, not from weakness, but from honesty. "When everything fell apart between us, I didn't know how to stand again. You built yourself a new life." She breathed out slowly. "I was still trying to rebuild mine." Tamara's expression softened, but she didn't interrupt. Amaka looked at her. "You think I did all of this because of jealousy?" She shook her head. "It wasn't jealousy. It was fear. Fear of being forgotten. Fear of being replaced like I never mattered." Her words hung heavy in the room. David leaned forward, his voice low and sincere. "You mattered. You were a part of my life. A real part. But we both broke somewhere we could not fix." Amaka swallowed hard. The rain tapped lightly in the background. Tamara spoke gently, carefully, not taking David's place in this part of the conversation. "You don't need to erase your past to move forward. But holding on to the wound doesn't heal it." Amaka blinked, eyes shining, not tears falling, but close. And then Yugo, the man behind her, stepped forward slightly. He did not like where this was going. His voice slid into the room, quiet but firm. "What they are offering is sentiment. Sentiment doesn't solve debt. It doesn't erase consequences. David's eyes sharpened. Amaka did not look at him. But her silence said, he knows things she wishes he didn't. Keen shifted his stance, poised, alert. David spoke evenly. Amaka, if someone is using your situation to keep you under pressure. Yugo stepped in front of her now, shield-like. She made her decisions. She'll see them through. We are not here for sympathy. Amaka flinched. Tamara noticed. David watched Yugo, his tone calm but edged with steel. You're benefiting from this conflict. Not her. Yugo gave a thin smile. And you think you're the only one allowed to build an empire from struggle? Keen took one step forward. Careful. You're speaking out of place. The air tightened. Amaka stood abruptly. Her chair scraped the floor. Stop. Everyone froze. She looked at Yugo first. I agreed to your help. I did not agree to become your weapon. Yugo's expression shifted, a crack of irritation, subtle but real. Then she turned to David. I don't want to fight you anymore. Tamara exhaled slowly, relief blooming quietly inside her. David nodded once, acceptance, not victory. But Yugo. Yugo was silent, and silence is where danger lives. He stepped beside Amaka, lowering his voice so only she and the room could hear. So that's your final choice? She didn't look away. Yes. And just like that, the alliance broke. No raised voice. No threat shouted. Just a line drawn clean and irreversible. Yugo adjusted his cuffs and stepped back. Very well, he said calmly. Too calmly. But understand, the people you owe will not accept apologies as payment. He walked past David and Keen, unhurried. As he reached the door, he paused. His final words were soft, but sharp enough to cut. This peace will cost you something. All of you. The door closed behind him. Silence returned. But this silence was different. Amaka's shoulders sagged, as though she had just laid down something very heavy. David spoke gently. We'll help you. But this time, it must be done the right way. Amaka nodded, slowly, but with clarity. Tamara stepped closer and placed a supportive hand on her arm, not as a replacement for anything, but as grace. For the first time in a long time, Amaka allowed herself to breathe. Outside, in the rain. Yugo stepped out into the wet night, unbothered by the rain soaking his suit. He pulled out his phone. A voice answered almost immediately. Did she agree? Yugo's jaw tightened, the first sign of controlled anger. No. There was silence on the other end. Then the voice replied. Then we proceed without her. Yugo's eyes narrowed. Yes. He ended the call. Lightning flashed across the sky. The real storm was only beginning. The morning came slowly. Gray light seeped through the curtains of the mansion, dull and heavy, as though the sun itself was unsure of rising. The storm clouds had not fully cleared, the air was thick, holding the memory of last night's rain. Tamara woke early. She didn't wake with panic or fear, but with awareness. The kind that comes when life changes direction and the heart adjusts to a new reality. She walked quietly to Zara's room. The little girl slept peacefully, curled around her stuffed toy. Tamara brushed a gentle hand over her hair. Safe. Calm. Unaware of how close danger had come. Tamara closed the door softly and made her way downstairs. She found David in the dining room. He was still in the same shirt from last night. Not because he had been working, but because he hadn't slept. He sat at the head of the table, hands clasped, staring at nothing. Not broken. Not afraid. Just thinking. Calculating. Tamara approached and sat beside him without a word. For a while, they simply breathed in the same space. Finally, David spoke. She chose peace. Tamara nodded. Yes. But Yugo didn't. David lifted his eyes to her. That's the problem. Meanwhile, across the city, Yugo was already in motion. He entered a polished glass building downtown, the kind where business deals were signed quietly and consequences were felt loudly. 3 men waited inside an office with city views. Is she still cooperating? The first man asked. Yugo shook his head. She has changed direction. A long, heavy silence followed. The second man leaned back, expression dark. Then we tighten pressure. She will return when she has no choice. Yugo considered this. No, he said. There is another way. The men looked at him. And he explained quietly, efficiently. The goal was not Amaka. The goal was the one thing David would protect above everything. His family. Back at the mansion. Breakfast was quiet. Zara hummed while spreading jam on toast. Oblivious. Innocent. Bright. David watched her, expression softening. Tamara noticed the shift, a reminder of why all of this mattered. Then the doorbell rang. A simple sound. But it made everyone look up. David stood. Keen, who had arrived early, stood too. The door was opened. A delivery man stood outside, holding a small brown package, no labels, no return address. David's breath slowed. Tamara felt the ground shift under her feet. Zara looked up, unaware. The package was brought inside and placed carefully on the table. No one touched it. Keen took out a pocket knife and sliced the tape, slow and cautious. Inside was a single object. A toy bracelet. Bright. Colorful. Made of beads. Zara gasped softly. That's mine. I dropped it at the playground last week. Tamara's heart stopped. Keen reached inside the box again and pulled out a card. One printed sentence. Nice morning. Pretty family. David's jaw locked. Keen stopped breathing. Tamara felt every nerve in her body go cold. Zara looked confused. What's wrong? Tamara moved instantly, kneeling, voice gentle. Sweetheart, can you go to your room and pick a book? We'll read together in a moment. Zara nodded and skipped away, unaware, untouched, safe for now. But the moment she disappeared up the stairs, the room transformed. David stood very still. Keen's voice was low, almost a whisper. They were close enough to follow her. Tamara rested her hands on the back of a chair to steady herself. David finally spoke, his voice no louder than before, but the quiet was sharper than thunder. This has gone far enough. He turned toward the window, watching the gray sky settle over the city. We stop waiting. He looked at Keen. Call Amaka. She needs protection now, not questioning. Keen nodded and pulled out his phone. David looked at Tamara. His voice changed, not cold, but certain. You and Zara stay inside. No school today. No outings. Security on every door. Every window. Tamara didn't argue. She stepped closer, placing a hand on his chest. You're not doing this alone. David held her hand firm, but gentle. I know, he said. But this move. I have to lead it. Tamara's expression held both fear and strength. She nodded once. David turned to Keen. Find Yugo. Keen slipped his phone back into his pocket. I already have a lead. David picked up his jacket. He didn't rush. He didn't panic. He simply moved with the purpose of a man who had made his decision and no longer had questions. Tamara followed him to the doorway. He paused before leaving. Their eyes met. No promises were spoken. No dramatic words exchanged. Just faith. David stepped out into the gray morning. The sky rumbled in the distance. The storm had returned. Not outside. Inside the city. Inside the story.
Inside the war. Rain had begun again.
Soft at first, like whispers against the roof of the city, then heavier, filling the air with a steady drumbeat. Lagos was a city that never slept, never slowed, but today the clouds pressed down low and heavy, as though the sky itself understood something serious was moving beneath it. David stepped out of the mansion's gates and closed the door to the armored SUV behind him.
Keen was in the passenger seat. 2 men from security rode in the car behind. No music. No conversation. Only the rain. Only purpose. Keen broke the silence first. We traced Yugo's last transaction. A private warehouse near the port. Leases under a dummy name, but the patterns match. David nodded slowly. No surprise. Just confirmation. Anyone inside? 3 vehicles recorded going in today. No one leaving. David exhaled once. This ends today. Meanwhile, in the safe house. Amaka sat on a couch, knees pulled to her chest, eyes swollen from days of crying.
The room was comfortable, neat, quiet, but her heart was anything but. She didn't know whether to feel grateful or ashamed. David's security had picked her up an hour earlier.
No explanations. Just, you are not safe.
She stared at the floor.
For so long, she believed control was something she could take back by force, by manipulation, by pride.
But now she understood something she wished she had learned before she lost everything. There are mistakes you can apologize for, and there are mistakes you must live with. The door opened. A woman entered, calm, composed.
One of David's senior security aides. Amaka looked up.
"Why are you helping me?" she asked.
The woman sat.
"Because someone is using you as leverage," she replied.
And leverage can turn quickly into liability. Amaka swallowed hard. So, they want me out of the way. Yes, the woman said simply. And if they can't remove you quietly, they will remove you loudly. Amaka closed her eyes. Her voice broke. I never wanted any of this.
The woman didn't comfort her, but her gaze softened.
No one ever does. But now you choose what happens next.
The warehouse, Port District. The warehouse was old, concrete walls streaked with rust from years of rain and salt air drifting inland.
Broken streetlights blinked weakly overhead. The SUV rolled to a stop. Keen glanced at David. No charging in. We watch first. We learn. David nodded.
They moved quietly, stepping through pools of shadow.
Rain dripped from the metal roof high above, steady, rhythmic, like a countdown.
A single door was cracked open.
Voices drifted from inside. One voice unmistakable. Yugo. He was speaking to someone. Calm. Too calm. He will react soon. We need to be ahead of him. Pressure is not enough. Fear must be personal. Emotional. David's jaw tightened. Not anger. Not shock. Focus.
Keen leaned closer to listen.
A second voice answered. He has security everywhere. How do you plan to reach him? Yugo chuckled lightly, the kind of laugh that came from someone who thought he was the smartest man in the room. Men with guards still eat. Still drive. Still send their children to school. Keen's breath stilled. David's pulse slowed, the dangerous kind of calm. He stepped forward. No hesitation. No warning. He pushed the door open and walked inside.
The room fell silent. 3 men turned toward him.
Yugo smiled, as though he had been waiting. Well, he said softly, there you are. David didn't raise his voice. You followed my daughter.
The room felt colder.
Yugo's smile didn't fade.
You made her part of your victory parade.
Everyone saw the happy family. The new life. The storybook ending. Did you think there would be no response? David took one step closer. You crossed a line.
No, Yugo replied, hands slowly lifting, not in surrender, but in mock grace.
You crossed mine first. You took something that mattered to me. David's expression didn't change. Tamara is not something.
Yugo's eyes flickered. She was mine before she was yours.
And there it was. Not strategy. Not business. Not power. Jealousy. Old. Deep. Stale. Poisoned. David spoke quietly. You do not love her. You love ownership.
The silence was sharp. For the first time, Yugo's jaw twitched.
David continued. You think this is about revenge. It's not. It's about losing something you assumed would always belong to you. Keen's stance shifted, ready. The other men in the room looked uneasy now.
The certainty Yugo had carried was cracking.
David took another step forward.
And listen to me very carefully, if you ever go near Zara again, I will not argue, or negotiate, or threaten. His voice lowered to a whisper that cut like glass.
I will end this. Permanently.
Yugo swallowed, just once.
But he held on to pride. You won't do anything that exposes your name. Your business. Your reputation.
David leaned in close enough that only Yugo heard him.
You think reputation is something I fear losing.
But mine was built from nothing.
I can rebuild it again. He stepped back. This is your final warning.
Yugo stood frozen.
David turned and walked toward the door. Keen followed. No rush. No fear. Just finality. Rain met them outside. Thunder rolled overhead.
The moment the warehouse door closed behind them,
Yugo exhaled, slow and trembling.
He had expected rage.
Violence. Threats. But this? This was something else. Something colder. Something far more dangerous. Something that did not make noise. But ended things. Yugo realized. David was not fighting anymore. He was finishing.